Thank you for joining us today. I know many of you came from quite a distance and at some inconvenience, so I thank you all for coming. I also welcome our attendees on the live stream. All of us experienced time with Drew, some longer than others, some shorter. Her siblings had almost a lifetime with Drew. I only enjoyed a portion of her life, but regardless, whatever time we had with Drew was worth it. Drew set the bar high. We all had to attain the standards she set. And as we all know, Drew wouldn't accept second best. She was a hard taskmaster in the best sense of the word because she applied the same high standards to herself that she expected from all of us. Her exquisite taste in fashion, jewelry, footwear, furnishing, speech, gardening, food, liquor, literature, TV shows, movies, and on down the line betrayed a sense of class, elegance, and decorum that we all envied. Those in Drew's satellite of orbit were always enamored of her, as was I. Drew made me a better person. I'm so grateful for the time I spent with Drew, and jealous that her family and some friends had a far longer run with her than I. Drew and I had wonderful times together. We enjoyed New York City and our place of residence in Manhattan Plaza. We went to the theater, concerts, and restaurants. We made many trips to Europe, mostly France. We came up to the house in Chappaqua a lot when my folks were there, and more recently when they weren't. I look back now and it feels like our time together was a blur. Seeing some of these photos on the monitor, I can't believe that I was with Drew looking so young and Drew looking so beautiful. Honestly, all I really want to do right now is get online and go to a website called youtube.life. Then I want to take up the video, Then I want to bring up the video of Drew and Brad. And then I want to click on that little dot where we are right now that says September 1, 2024. And I want to drag it back to the middle of 1989. Then I want to let it play all over again. And I want Drew and Brad to live it all over again. And I'm sure everybody here feels the same way, that your time with Drew was worth living and reliving. So with that, let me just mention that Drew loved being an actress. She called herself an actor. She loved getting auditions, being on stage, and shooting commercials. Drew would be embarrassed right now. Sorry, Drew, my dear. But I want to show you 3 examples of her work as an actor. The first is a national TV commercial that she filmed in 2021 during COVID. It's for Butterfingers Candy. Please take a look.
It's always the grandma.
I'm not a grandma.
You will be.
Oh, wait, stop it. Okay. Here's another spot that Drew did for McCormick Spices. And please note that Drew, in typical Drew fashion, my sweetheart, gets the last word, which is totally appropriate.
Everything's gonna be delicious.
This is the season
My folks are here.
when the country's toughest food critics show up on your doorstep. That's why McCormick has helped generations of holiday cooks get rave
Hey, honey,
reviews.
the Wilsons are here, and Brenda's here.
This is delicious. You'll have to give me the recipe.
McCormick is the difference between a recipe and a family tradition. McCormick, the taste.
And lastly, I'd like to show you something that people don't normally get to see. The way things are done in the recent past is that it's called a self-tape. In the old days, you would go to an actual physical location and they would film you, or the casting director and whatever, the powers that be would see you in person. Well, the new mode is called a self-tape, and you do the audition in your apartment, as we did. So this is Drew. She was given one line of copy, and I filmed her with the iPhone, and this is, I think, a treat. So please enjoy this audition. I don't know what it's for.
Hi, Drew Dempsey. Cunningham is my agent. Can your internet do that? Can your internet do that? Can your internet do that? Can your internet do that?
Can you run that one more time? Really, I want to see it one more time.
It'll be on those live stream, Justin. You'll see it. So she really made the most of that. I will miss Drew enormously. And with that, I thank you again, and I turn the floor over to Sister Rosie.
I have several tributes from 3 siblings who were not able to be here with us directly due to their health or their spouse's health. Here's a tribute from my baby sister, Jennifer, who I call Jenny Pooh. My sister Drew and I are the bookends of our siblings. She is the oldest, and almost 19 years later, I became the youngest. Drew already lived on her own, and she made time for her littlest sister, and I cherish special memories. She took me to the movies, we saw My Fair Lady, and I remember discussing it afterwards, the plot, based on Pygmalion, and the outfits and the songs. I also remember seeing her act at a dinner theater, and what an exciting evening it was. Dinner at a restaurant and my sister on the stage, transformed into a character in the play. She always made me feel so grown up. Drew invited me to stay with her, sleepovers at her apartment near the University of Maryland, and then longer trips when she moved to Manhattan. She sublet the front room in a shotgun apartment several flights above the vibrant street. I was fascinated and overwhelmed, but safe with my big sister as we rode the subway to visit the Met, Central Park, and the top of the Empire State Building. We took the ferry to the Statue of Liberty and climbed the final stairway to look out the windows of the Crown. When Drew moved into her own apartment at Manhattan Plaza, I drove in the moving van and carried boxes up to the 32nd floor, wowed by the view and so excited for her. I continued to visit, and we saw the Pirates of Penzance in the park and walked through the theater district to Times Square, and she introduced me to fine cuisine from her kitchen. Green beans were transformed as just cooked, slender young beans topped with a delicious sauce. Who knew vegetables could be so wonderful, so French? Drew wanted to be with her little sister, but also introduced me to new experiences and broaden my horizon. And she did, my elegant and sophisticated Manhattan-dwelling sister. I hold dear these special memories and appreciate the role she played in my growing up. So many of the things that my sister just said there also apply to me. Drew really opened up the world of New York for me, which was such a big deal when I was young. And she took care of me many times over the years of my life. My brother Podrick wasn't able to be here with his wife, Mary. And he just wanted to share a tiny little memory of something he just thought of, which I certainly had never heard about. Drew was about 10, Podrick was 5. And Drew put on a play I'm sure many were put on, in the garage, and neighbors came to see it. Drew directed and starred in it, and some of us siblings had a line or two. I, Podrick, missed my cue and forgot to say my line. There were cookies and sodas after the show. We had a lifetime together, as Brad said, and so wonderful to have shared childhood and onward together as we look back. My sister Delia also couldn't be here, and she wanted to contribute some bits of history to the program, which many people contributed to the memorial program you have. And I would say all my feelings for Drew are wrapped up in the story that's there. Delia had given me some wonderful little bits that didn't make it into the program, and they are this. Our dad missed Drew's birth because he was serving on a destroyer in the Pacific Ocean heading to Japan. Mom and Drew, Mary Ann Justina then, lived at 613 Monroe Street Northeast, which is about 8 blocks from where I live now, until Dad joined them after demobilization. In 1951, the family moved to a house that abutted a large field and a woods. It was a huge natural playground for us, and we felt like we were in the country. In addition to putting on plays at home, Drew appeared in the yearly PTA variety show at her elementary school, and at high school she became famous for her depiction of the Wicked Witch of the West in The Wizard of Oz. I'd also like to take this moment to acknowledge Virginia, a very good friend to Brad and Drew in the last 5 years or more. She helped Brad and Drew deal with Brad's parents' house, and then she's helped so much with a lot of logistics with Drew over these last 18 months, in which Drew was well and then unwell and well and then unwell. I love Drew very much. I will miss her very much, and I have loads and loads of memories to cherish for the rest of my life. Brad has asked that you remember to sign the guest book as you depart. But before that, we have a tradition in our family of sharing memories at a time like this, at this moment. And if anybody would like to share anything about Drew, then I invite you to speak from where you are or come up here, whatever you're most comfortable with. And thank you very much, all of you, for being here. Is that Sally? Yeah. Would you like to come up, since I know how brave you are?
If anybody missed the picture of Drew on the candle, or on a chair seated on a jeep in Lahore, Pakistan, see me later. Or the picture of us with our old journalism teacher in around 2000, 2001 in Savannah at a reunion. Anyway, my name is Sally Richards, otherwise Sarah Madden, whatever. Mary Ann, as I knew her in high school, was a force of nature. You all know that. Sophisticated, worldly, self-assured, and elegant, even as a teen. But she always had a sense of adventure. Oh yeah, did you see the picture of her on the camera? Our dads, William J. Dempsey and Russell L. Richards, both worked in Quetta, West Pakistan for the US government. And Drew, my twin, Susie Richards, and I were sent away to school across the country the first year the Richards were in country. We three went to Lahore American School, LAS, for the year 1962 to 63. That was her senior year. And we boarded together at first in the home of an older couple. Drew was a senior that year, and Susie and I were sophomores. I remember Drew got in trouble with the older couple when she snuck out one night to go riding on the back of some guy's motorcycle. Yeah, we might have told the couple about that. Anyway, the older couple, they were really strict. So Susie and I were able to get out of there and move in with our English teacher's family, Colonel and Mrs. Dice, and their daughter Nanette and son. But Drew had to stay behind with that couple. Drew was well known and loved at LAS, and she was crowned Queen of the Halloween Carnival her senior year, which is rather ironic, but some of you might not know that was her 17th birthday. She also acted in the play Harvey. It's the same story that was made into a 1950 movie starring James Stewart, so this would have just been 12 years later. So people knew that movie. Her senior remembrance page in the yearbook looks forward to her plans to move to Paris for college, where she pursued her dream of acting. My twin even drew a little sketch. It was you might not know, a little sketch of Drew standing in front of the Eiffel Tower. And she was on the yearbook staff with my twin and me. Years later, as I mentioned, Drew and I saw our old journalism teacher, Mrs. Fluke, at a reunion of the school in Savannah, Georgia. I remember when we were planning to go down to that reunion. She was living in Manhattan, I live in Maryland, and one person who went to school at the school, we didn't go, it was a different year, offered to fly anyone from the DC area down to Savannah in his private plane. Now, I don't know about you, but a private plane sounds rather big and elegant, okay? Drew wisely chickened out at the last minute, and she drove from Manhattan to Savannah, but I flew in the plane. It's a good thing we only had 3 people. This plane was so tiny, it had one propeller. You had to walk on the plane's wing to get into the plane. And with 3 people, normal sized, we almost couldn't get up. Yeah, so she made a good choice not to go with it. We had a blast once we were there, though. When the Richards and Dempseys all ended up in the DC area in later years, they aren't my family, all right? I may not have Dempsey on my name, but yeah, I'm a Dempsey. We would see Brad and Drew from time to time, not as much as we would have liked, but we saw all the other Dempseys at Jack and Barbara's Christmas parties in Chevy Chase, further enriching our lives. I will miss her, and we will see you on the other side, Drew. Now, that's mine. I'm going to give you 2 remembrances from my twin, Susie. Hi, Rosie. My memories of Drew are myriad. She had such a clear sense of herself, such confidence, and great posture. It's true. And a wicked sense of humor. Sarah and I, now my real name's Sarah. I go by Sally. Anyone older knows me as Sally. Either way, it's the same person. Sarah and I roomed with her for a short time, fall of '62, in Lahore, Pakistan, with an elderly couple, until Sarah and I literally ran away with our suitcases to our English teacher, Mrs. Dice, and her family. Drew never made us feel badly about abandoning her. Drew gave me my very first lessons in makeup, mainly how to bring my see-through eyelashes, because Susie is very much a redhead, how to bring my see-through eyelashes and eyebrows to life with pencil and mascara. So I've thought of Drew nearly every day for 62 years. She told me I was pretty, and I believed her. Thank you, sweet Drew. She also gave excellent dating advice, which I hesitate to go into detail here, and which was easily as helpful as the makeup tutorials. Rise in glory, Drew. Now, Susie later told me something I can add to this. She said that actually Willie was the first boy she ever kissed, and Drew was advising her to take it easy with Willie. So, yeah, sorry, Drew. Okay, now the second memory from Susie. Sarah's and my dad, Russell Richards, took the 3 of us girls on a day trip Sarah's and my dad, Russell Richards, took the three of us girls on a day trip outside of Lahore to Shekhapura and surrounding villages, kind of rural. At one point in one of the villages, suddenly all the children and women disappeared, and we three girls were surrounded by men and older teenage boys who started grabbing and groping us. Daddy fired his gun in the air, and that maddened the crowd, and they dispersed instantly. It took years for me to get over my overwhelming anxiety whenever I was in a crowd of predominantly men. Another grand adventure the three of us survived was the 17-hour train trip through the lawless area from Quetta to Lahore in September '62. That's across the width of the country. Our parents put us in our own bogie train car, padlocked us in, and gave us firecrackers to light and throw if any brigands threatened us, which they did on 2 occasions. Life was different then, all right? Only once we had to light the crackers, and we threw them through the barred window at the men trying to open our door. The second time was when the train stopped and other men tried to light a fire under our car. But the train started moving before we succumbed to the smoke. I remember thinking, how could we have escaped? We had to have the padlock unlocked in Lahore to get out. Curiously, that only strengthened my love of train travel. Marianne perfectly complemented our Richard's sense of adventure here. And that ends my memories. I mean, for right now. I have many more. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Scott Robertson. If I hear live stream, I'm such an actor, I go, oh, live stream. This is incredible. I thought I loved the vibe in the room, so I thought this would be the time to say this. I noticed a number of years back, as my mustache got whiter, that I began attending more farewells to friends and family. And having met Drew just about 45 years ago, our friendship grew and it changed. And she was definitely an integral part of our family on the 32nd floor of Manhattan Plaza. She lived 3 doors down. I'm so grateful to Brad for extending the invitation to those who have cared for and, yes, loved Drew over these many years. I was elated when Drew and Brad got together. And it was adorable watching them navigate the stairs with major dishes and pies and goodies on trays back and forth, up and down. From 31 to 32, I could certainly relate, as I had met Peter Flint, my late husband, almost the exact same way. I had moved into 32L. This is when the building first opened. And I met Peter in the elevator one night, and he'd heard me playing the piano, just like Brad. I just realized that. And he lived in 33L. And we had coffee, which lasted for 3 days. And eventually he moved down 1 floor to the apartment across the hall from me. So now Peter and I were both neighbors of Drew. At that time, Marianne. Eventually, we gave that apartment up, and we lived together in my apartment for 35 years, at which time we finally got married. And Peter Flint passed 5 months after we were married. A very long cancer battle. Drew, along with the family on the 32nd floor, were there for me on this new journey that's been very challenging, but ultimately a rewarding one. Now, how do we do this? How do we say goodbye? I jumped into this process of grief and reached out for help along the way. I found a beautiful little book called The Beauty of What Remains by Stephen Letter. And I opened the book last night before I went to bed, and I just happened upon this quote, and I wanted to share that with you today. Stephen writes, "Like the sea, like the rising and setting of the sun, disease, age, and decline have their own rhythm, an internal wisdom and power that sweeps us up, carries us, schools us, enlightens us, exhausts us, and without our fully knowing it, prepares us for death, the perfect peace." His main point in this book is that those who have passed are just fine. It's us, those who were the cheerleaders and the caretakers, that are left with this void. I believe that some counselor along the way said to me that this process was a slow one, and at first you feel like there's a boulder on your shoulder, and then slowly it turns into a small stone, and then a pebble, and then eventually a grain of sand in your pocket. Not sure I've hit that grain of sand yet. So we gathered to celebrate Marianne, Drew Dempsey. It took me a while to get used to the Drew part. She had been Marianne most of my life, my adult life, and she would interrupt me, and I would say the other name, and she would say, "It's Drew." And I really loved her answering machine, which was, "Hi, Drew Dempsey. Please leave a message." It was so curious and funny, and she was so beautiful and smart. Very early on, we had this actors support group. There were 6 of us, and Peter was one of them. And we would get together with a very large bottle of Folinari and wine, and which was very popular in the 80s. And we would brainstorm on how to get acting jobs or agents or commercials. And Drew would take the gavel and make us send out at least 10 pictures and resumes every week, minimum. She was the leader, and we loved it, and her, and she was so talented. There are many stories, of course, along the way, jobs and heartbreaks. Drew and I spoke most of the time in front of the laundry room because Drew lived directly across from the laundry room and from the door of the laundry room, which at that point had no spring system. And the door would bang every single time somebody went to empty the garbage or do their laundry. And so Drew would come out, I would be doing my laundry, and she said, "That's going to change." And I think she had her own private phone line to the maintenance department at that point. I loved her attention to detail, and I loved her delight. Her when she showed me her built-in bookcases, I mean, she was so proud of those bookcases. I was in awe. She would paint a chair or a table for months, it seemed, to get it right. And we had nights where we would sit at her little table and she'd coach me on some Shakespeare monologue or some audition I had, or she would listen with this incredible focus and then throw her head back and laugh. And over the years, I had coached all my Broadway auditions with Brad downstairs on 31st floor. When I told Drew I had been working with Brad, she said sternly, "Whatever you do, Scott, do not go into Brad's bathroom." Then once more, her head flies back laughing. And the years would go by, and my husband, Peter, was a medic in Vietnam, and when Drew had her hip surgery, he would go and change the bandages every day when she needed. She trusted Peter, and they had a very sweet connection. And the last thing I wanted to tell you about is the lamp. Somewhere in the mid-1990s, maybe, Peter Flint and I had moved out of the studio apartment, and we had the one apartment now. Over a period of a year or so, there seemed to be a rather quiet when we were waiting for, Drew seemed to be a little quiet when we were waiting for the elevator, and she didn't have much to say. which was highly unusual. And this was well before Brad came into the picture, and I started to feel uneasy. It had been over a year, and it was quiet. So one day at the elevator, I said, "What's up?" And she said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "You really haven't spoken to me for about a year. What's that about?" And she proceeded to tell me about a lamp that she said she had stored in our studio apartment across the hall that we never gave back to her. And so I said, "What lamp?" And she said it was in this box, and she describes this antique treasure that she'd been restoring. And I'd been out on the road in some play, and I remember cleaning out the closets, and I'd never found this lamp or the box. And I started getting very loud, and I stated, "So this is why you haven't spoken to me in a year?" And we ended up going to her apartment, and we talked and we laughed and we cried as I told her my saga of trying to get clean and sober and all of the scary places I went. And we were back as friends. And I said to her, "Drew, I have no clue where this lamp could be. I don't remember you putting anything in our closet. I am so sorry." And she hugged me and she said, "Oh, don't worry about that silly lamp." As only Drew can do. I loved watching Drew and Brad over the years. Brad's concerts, Drew was there. She was so proud of Brad and his work and his endless talent and the games piled to the ceiling. They were simply perfect for each other. And they inspired me to travel all over the world, which is what I've been doing after hearing about their trips. I picture Drew now lounging on a brightly colored chaise lounge that she no doubt restored. Her face glows, bathed in beautiful white light. She found it. She got the lamp. She got the lamp back. Hopefully, some of that bright light will travel down to us. As our tears subside, we will once again experience the beauty of what remains. Thank you, Drew, Marianne, Drew, for being a constant contact in my life. You made doing laundry an adventure just so much better and way more fun. God bless you, sweetheart. I love you. Peter loves you. Scotty.
It's a hard act to follow. Brave Tom is here.
So I'm Tom Baker, and I didn't prepare anything to say, so I'm just going to wing this. But my mother was born Rose Dempsey, and Rosie is I think named after my mom. And growing up, there's always been a great deal of family sense of connection. And it's been part of my whole life, and the Dempseys are always been part of that as well, and it's like a tradition. And I think back of the times that I've spent over the years, and I knew her as cousin Marianne too, and was surprised when it was changed to Drew, but that was some time ago, and I got used to that. Most recently, I celebrated my 70th birthday, and Drew and Rosie came to that celebration, and my kids were there, and it was just such a wonderful experience for me, and I'm so grateful that she could be there, and she wasn't well when she came, but it was such a treat to have her. And as it was 10 years previous when she was at my 60th birthday party, which was at a steak restaurant in Brooklyn, I think, and then 10 years before that at my 50th. And it's like, you know, here is this sense of family again. And you know, and over the years, all of these connections have just they've just meant so much. And you know, she will be very much missed. You know, by me and by everyone, because of the person that she was. And you know, it's so hard to say goodbye. Goodbye, Drew. Thanks.
Feel free to stand up exactly where you are, not stand up at all. If anyone else would like to share a memory or an anecdote, now's the time. You don't have to come up. You don't even have to stand up. But it's wonderful looking out at everybody. And there's a gentleman in the back there who is rising. I see. Thank you for coming up. Apparently we have to come up whether we want to or not.
Thank you very much.
Certainly.
I'm really honored to be here on such a solemn occasion. What I will say is nothing that already hasn't been said or will be said. I had several friends, and we all loved Drew. There's just no way one could do anything other than love Drew. She was such a special person. My wife, Lorena, who is with me this afternoon, and I were quite fortunate. We came up, I guess it was last year, for an opportunity to be with her. Well, it turned out that it was the very afternoon that she was released from hospital. And she insisted that she would want to be with both me and Lorena and Brad. In a similar vein, about a month or so later, we also came up and we were able to have a dinner with Brad and Drew. And it turned out to be the evening before she had to go back to the hospital. So we kind of were lucky in the sense that we were able to bookend an opportunities to be with Drew and Brad. And again, this is something that she just insisted upon doing. She obviously was weak, having been in hospital, but Drew being Drew would have it no other way. And that is just a little example of how special she was. I'm also winging this. I haven't prepared any notes, but I will say that this wonderful lady, this outgoing, vivacious, brilliant, beautiful, talented lady, just kind of took shy little me under her wing, and I became a friend. And that always amazed me and always will continue to amaze me. The last thing I'd like to say is to Ms. Richards, I do appreciate your memories of Drew from Lahore, and I appreciate your remarks. I'd like to say in response, Bohoracha. Very good. Thank you very much, and thank you all for helping us remember Drew so fondly. Thank you.
I'm Donald Davidson, and I'm married into the Dempsey.
Get on the mic.
Get on the mic. Get on with it. Okay. I'm Donald Davidson. I married into the Dempsey family about 40 years ago, and it doesn't seem to have affected my health any. I just wanted to relate a couple things. Those who spoke to how there are characteristics that really stand out about Drew, and two that I'll relate. One is my wife Rosie and I were at the movies, and in a trailer or an advertisement between the films, there was a shot from high up of pedestrians crossing the Brooklyn Bridge. And the crowd spreads, and there's just one person walking away from the view, or all you can see is the backside, and she was fully dressed. I said to Rosie, I nudged her, I said, "That sure looks like Drew." And I'd never seen her from behind, not really looking. And at the last moment in the clip, she turns around and it's her. And I felt really good that I could recognize her. I asked her about it, and in typical Drew fashion, Drew said, "Don't tell anybody. It wasn't a union job." And that's the thing this Washingtonian will tell you that I've always noticed about New Yorkers is you in some ways you enjoy out things, but you don't want anyone to know that you were breaking the law doing it or some custom. I honor you for that. The other one was there were various periods of time that I got along and didn't get along with various members of the Dempsey clan. And there were periods off and on where Drew and I were not getting along. When she met Brad and she was totally enthralled with Brad, she insisted on telling me, she says, "You know what I love about Brad so much? He reminds me of you." That was the great thing about her. And seeing all these friends of hers and how eloquent that they are, it makes me very happy that she was a part of my life and I was part of hers in some small way. And Brad, you've carried on very, very well in the marriage. We were one of two couples that were allowed to see you get married.
We were the only ones.
We were the only ones. Well,
At the secret wedding.
the secret wedding in the judges' chambers.
In a beautiful courtroom.
Courtroom, right. Anyway, thank you very much.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So I look forward to hopefully talking to some of you back at the house later on after the burial. Thank you very much. And the funeral director is going to give us some directions.
Thank you.
The address is in the program, so if you're GPS keen, you don't have to worry about getting lost.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the services here.